The president of the seminar, Comrade Govindan Master, Comrade Kanam Rajendran, Comrade Thomas Isaac, Shri Sunil P. Ilyadam, Dr. K. N. Ganesh, Dr. Shiba, Shri Karthikeyan Nair, and comrades and friends, we are today observing the 100 years of the launching of the Vaikam Satyagraha, which began on March 30th, 1924. So we have this year-long celebration of this historic event, which was not only of great relevance for Kerala, but for the rest of the country. Already you have been told about the nature of this Satyagraha, which lasted for 603 days, and how we saw the leadership and participation of people from various castes, both the Savarna caste and the Avarna caste, for the demand that the public roads or the roads around the Vaikum temple should be thrown open for all. This is what, with this demand, this Satyagraha was conducted. And there are two important features of this Satyagraha, which is first the involvement and participation of leaders of various caste organizations and people from all castes and communities. The second is that the Congress Party, the All India Congress Committee itself endorsed the beginning of the Satyagraha, and therefore it got linked to the national movement for independence. We know how this Satyagraha ended. Finally, after Gandhiji had come to Vaikam and also gone to Trivandrum to talk with the Maharani and the administration, a compromise was settled upon, which is that 3 of the 4 roads will be open to the public, and the eastern road will remain restricted for the Brahmins to go into the temple. This was therefore a limited success. It is also to be noted that unlike the temple entry movements which developed later after the Vaikam Satyagraha, this was not a direct demand for temple entry for the lower castes. It was only for access to the public roads. But despite these limitations and the fact that this was only a compromise solution, the Vaikam Satyagraha must be seen now from the long view of history as a major advance, because for the first time the democratic aspirations of the oppressed castes was expressed in this struggle, and it found support from the more enlightened and democratic sections of the upper caste. So as pointed out by the earlier speakers, this was an important and significant feature of the Vaikam Satyagraha. I would like to dwell more upon the consequences of the Vaikam Satyagraha. What happened as a result of this historic agitation. All of you know that E.V. Ramaswamy, now known as Periyar, was one of the leaders, the leading participant of this struggle. He was also at that time the president of the Tamil Nadu Pradesh Congress Committee. And it is because this was a call given by the Congress that he came here to physically participate in the struggle. And as you know, spent months here in the struggle. But after the result of this settlement or compromise, E.V. Ramaswamy, Periyar, revolted against this decision. He called it a betrayal. And he quit the Congress party. He thought that Gandhiji's approach was compromising and was not radical enough in the fight for social change and social reform. And after that, in Tamil Nadu, a different trajectory was taken. Periyar led the Dravidian movement, which fought for social justice and had its own way of trying to achieve the end of the Brahminical caste order and discrimination. Here in Kerala, after the Vaikam Satyagraha, though which was not actually a demand for temple entry, subsequently temple entry struggles and movements developed, both in Travancore and then finally in the famous Guruvayur Satyagraha. And by that time, you had the fledgling left movement in Kerala, and you saw the participation of P. Krishnapillai and A.K. Gopalan in this struggle. In fact, A.K. Gopalan was the volunteer captain in the Guruvayur Satyagraha. And here, the Congress party, which had actually decided to conduct this Vaikam Satyagraha, that was not sustained by the Congress party. Their approach to the demands of the lower castes for their rights, for social justice, was looked on with suspicion. And they said that the main fight is against the British rule and the freedom struggle should only concentrate on that. They picked up that same theme, not only in Kerala but all over the country. And that led to a rupture between two major forces. The one, the anti-imperialist forces and movement fighting against British rule, and the movement of the oppressed caste led by their leaders or by some of the caste organizations for social change and social justice. These two got divorced and separated. This actually weakened the national movement, because the Congress party did not take this approach that a fight against imperialism and the feudal rulers in India, if it has to be strengthened and consistent, it must harness the movement of the oppressed castes for social justice and for their rights. If only these could be combined, that movement could have become a wider, deeper democratic movement and bring about wider and deeper democratic changes in our social system. This is the picture all over the country. So whether it was Periyar, whether it was Dr. Ambedkar, all the major anti-caste social reformers, they kept away from the Congress party because they said they are not going to take up our cause. They are upper caste dominated. And they went on another trajectory, which is to keep away from the anti-imperialist and freedom struggle. But here in Kerala, because of the intervention of the left, because of the emergence of the left, the recognition that the awakening of the lower caste, their consciousness for their rights, this has a democratic content. And this must be combined with, married with the development of class organizations, which will represent the exploited and oppressed of all castes and communities. This approach, which was taken by the left in Kerala, first within the Congress, when the Congress Socialist Party was there, and later, of course, when the Communist Party was formed, this took Kerala on a different trajectory. It did not become the social reform and the renaissance which developed in Kerala was not to be confined to the caste organizations or narrowly sectarian bodies which only advocated their community or caste interests. But when it was combined with this class perspective, it united all the oppressed and exploited to fight against the colonial feudal system or regime that existed in India before independence. So it is the left and the communists who had this perspective. And that is why how we viewed the Vaikam Satyagraha and the developments afterwards has important lessons for us to be drawn in Kerala, which is that, as Comrade E.M.S. Namboodiripad said, the caste organizations in the first stage, they played an important role in awakening their own oppressed masses to make them conscious to fight for their rights. And he said that, talking about Sri Narayana Guru, he said, that is why Sri Narayana Guru, the saintly leader of the Eravas, must be considered the first inspirer and organizer of the mass democratic movement of the cultivating and landless peasants of Kerala. The organization of lower castes are thus the first form in which the peasantry got itself organized and started to struggle for democracy. So the democratic content of the role played in the early stage of the organizations like the SNDP, that is what EMS is referring to. But he then points out, subsequently in the later stage, these caste organizations would not acknowledge or accept that there are oppressed people in all communities, in all castes, and the necessity to build the class unity of all these sections. Rather, they wanted to prevent the development of class consciousness among their own oppressed sections and keep their narrow sectarian interests in mind. And therefore, he said, they started playing a reactionary role. But because of the entry of the left and the communists, the building of class organizations, the building of the left movement, we found that the struggle of the oppressed castes for their rights got combined with their struggle against the class exploiters and the rule of the colonial rulers and the feudal rulers. And this was carried forward after independence also against the bourgeois landlord system. And therefore you saw a different trajectory in Kerala. You saw that the demands for the rights of the lower caste, their aspirations were brought within the wider democratic framework and platform. Unlike in other parts of India, where you found that finally it was developed into just caste identity politics, which is utilized by the ruling class parties. You will not find in most parts of North India any temple entry movement even in the first 2 or 3 decades of the 20th century. So the awakening of the consciousness of the lower caste, combining it with the overall struggle against the class rule of the exploiters, that could not take place at all in many parts of the country. So that is the important lesson to be drawn. That what Vaikom started, though it was a limited success, was taken forward. And the Renaissance forces and the Renaissance development in Kerala, what you call the Navodhanam, that could be sustained and deepened because of the role of the left and the development of the class-based movements and organizations. If you look back now, you will see that in Tamil Nadu, you still have atrocities against Dalits. Here's a movement of Periyar, which was a very radical movement against caste, against the Hindu Sanatana Dharma, etc. But it could not deepen because it did not take up their class issues of their daily exploitation as agricultural workers. So Dalits are still today, you will find incidents of atrocities, attacks on their houses, villages, the women being raped, etc. Still some incidents take place, which you cannot find in Kerala. You see. There are so many other examples. So what I'm trying to say is that Vaikom brought out, it was at the crossroads. How do we take forward the anti-imperialist movement and the anti-feudal movement? Because the Congress party did not want really to carry forward the anti-feudal movement. Gandhiji was well known for his softness to the princely rulers, you see. He thought, after all, they're part of our own society, and he had a different approach, you see. He would never think of calling for a revolt against the Hindu Rajas of that time. He had a different approach to that. All he thought was how to change the mind of the upper caste through our sacrifice and through our satyagraha, which Sri Narayana Guru really didn't endorse. When he met Gandhiji, when Gandhiji came here, the famous conversation, Sri Narayana Guru said, I don't think non-violence alone will be sufficient. Non-violence satyagraha will be able to meet our goals or ends, though they agreed to disagree on this. So we have to understand that this Vaikom Satyagraha opened the door to further advances in the sphere of social justice and social change. And in Kerala, the link between the anti-imperialist struggle and anti-feudal struggle and social justice was maintained and strengthened because of the role of the left and the Communist Party. Now I come to our current situation in the country. 100 years have passed. Forget about only public roads being open to others. All temples have been opened to all castes in many parts of the country. Though even in Tamil Nadu today, we are conducting temple entry movements in some places. Our anti-touchability organization is still conducting temple entry for Dalits in at least half a dozen cases in the last few years. In Kerala, this does not exist. But this gains made since the Vaikom Satyagraha, the advance of enlightenment values, no dhanam, all that is today threatened. The threat comes from what Comrade Govindan Master mentioned, the advent of the Hindutva regime in our country. The RSS was formed in 1925. You will not find a single instance between 1925 and independence of the RSS conducting any temple entry movement. Because they wanted to maintain the Varnashrama Dharma system. They believe in Manusmriti. And today's rulers in India believe in Manusmriti. You see, and that means insidiously the Hindutva ideology is going to undermine all the social gains which have been made in the last century after Vaikom Satyagraha. You're finding how they are rewriting history. They're finding how they are inculcating irrational ideas in textbooks. Recently, the NCRT textbooks have been revised. Everybody has focused upon how they have omitted the Mughal period and all that. But they have not spared science also. In the science textbook, the section on evolution, the Darwin's theory of evolution has been removed. Because as one RSS leader said, we have not descended from the apes. According to them, there is a Dasavatara. We have descended from the gods. So they cannot accept that human beings have evolved over the years from ape to man through a process. So they have dropped it from the textbooks now. So they will try to roll back the tide of history and science. And that is something we have to be alert about. Because when it is happening all over India, it will infiltrate into Kerala also. They'll seek to, Hindutva consciousness is sought to be now penetrated and injected in all sections of society. And that is why it's very important for us to draw the proper lessons from the Vaikom Satyagraha and commit ourselves to carry forward that process of enlightenment and renaissance which was unleashed from that Satyagraha, and that can be carried forward only if we fight against this Hindutva corporate regime that we have in our country today. And that means fighting against the neoliberal policies which are exploiting all sections of our working people, and particularly those who are the most socially oppressed, the Adivasis, the Dalits, and minorities and other oppressed sections, and making sure that the unity of the working people, of all the oppressed classes, is maintained by also paying due attention to the continuing fight against caste discrimination and caste orthodoxy, and to take the radical vision of people like Sri Narayana Guru, Jyotiba Phule, even Periyar to some extent, who talked about having a casteless society, but that casteless society can be accomplished only when you struggle for a classless society also. Thank you.